For IRS notice CP508C. This is a notice that you might receive from the Internal Revenue Service if they've issued a report of your seriously delinquent federal tax debt to the State Department. So as we go through this video, we'll talk about what exactly that means, the impact that it could have for your situation, what you should be expected to do, and then places where you can find additional information. So before we break down this notice, let's start at the top. We're going to take a look at the upper right hand corner. You'll see the notice number. Notice date is particularly important. So this is January 30th, 2019. And the reason why this is important is because there's probably some sort of requested action that's due here. And any timelines are calculated based on the number of days from the notice date. So, for example, if it says, please respond within 30 days or please pay this amount within 21 days, it's talking about the number of days from the notice date, not necessarily when you receive the notice. So if your name or if your address information is not up to date and it takes additional time for your mail to catch up to you, that's not part of the IRS's calculation. They're not going to take that into consideration when it comes to whether or not you filed a response on time or not. So speaking of your name and address, you should always look over here on the left hand side to make sure that this information's up to date. Normally, if you file a tax return with your new information, it will update. However, there are situations where you may want to file a change of address form, the IRS Form 8822, or in this case of a business owner, that would be IRS Form 8822-B. That way, if you're expecting IRS correspondence, you can continue to receive it in a timely manner and give yourself as much time to react as possible. Now let's take a closer look at what this notice is telling us. So, part of the background is that in 2015, Congress passed what's known as the FAST Act, which really had to do a lot with transportation. But one of the requirements was that the IRS has to notify the State Department of taxpayers that they have certified as owing a, quote, seriously delinquent tax debt. And there is an official definition that we'll get to in a moment. But that's a category of tax debt that's considered to be so high and so delinquent, meaning that the IRS does not believe that the taxpayer involved has any intent of paying that down. And so as a result, the IRS is required to forward that information to the State Department. The State Department is also then required to take certain steps to limit travel. So, for example, there may be notices stationed at ports of entry. You may find that your passport has been revoked, or if you're trying to apply for a new passport, you may not be able to get one, so on and so forth. So the intent is really to prevent tax dodgers from leaving the country before they pay this, quote, seriously delinquent federal tax debt. So in this case, the IRS has certified the tax debt as $97,978.55. That includes penalties and interest that they calculated through the 30-day mark from the date of this notice. So the date of the notice is January 30th. 30 days would happen to be March 1st, 2019. That's the 30-day mark. So the notice only includes the portion of the tax debt that's been certified to the State Department. There could be other tax debt that the IRS isn't even discussing right now. So according to this notice, seriously delinquent tax debt is tax debt for which they've filed a tax lien. They have at any point issued a levy to collect on the debt, and if it's more than $52,000, which that's been adjusted for inflation, I think that that number is higher now. So here are the consequences. If you apply for a passport, the State Department's going to deny it. If you have a passport, they may revoke it or limit your ability to travel outside the United States. So if you simply agree, just write a check for the full amount that you owe, wipe the slate clean. Sure, $97,000. I'm sure most people would just be willing to write that off to start over and get going again. Or you can make alternate payment arrangements. So if you have an installment agreement, if you are in the middle of an offer in compromise, there are multiple ways to be able to take your debt off of the list of, quote, seriously delinquent tax debt. So we'll get into some of those criteria, what those qualifying conditions may be. And then, and if you qualify for one of those, then you can have your name taken off of that list. But if you want to pay the full amount or any amount, you can send a check or money order. You would make it payable to the U.S. Treasury. You would write your tax ID number or both spouses' tax ID numbers. You could use the last page of this notice, which also contains a slip. Generally speaking, you're going to want to make sure that the check or money order has your information on it. So it should have your social security number just in case it comes separate. People will know where to apply your check. If you do disagree, you can send proof of payment to the IRS. If you don't agree that you owe the debt, you can call the IRS, or you can bring a civil action in a court of law. You're not required to contact the IRS or go through the administrative remedy process before you go to tax court. That is completely within your power. If you have a POA, you should contact your POA because this notice may not be covered under that power of attorney. We'll put a link in the show notes to the power of attorney form. That's IRS form 2848, just so that you can be familiar with that. The billing details, basically this is a breakdown. So it looks like the taxpayer had a couple of years of 1040 debt. This looks like a quarterly employment tax return. And the IRS is required by law to charge applicable penalties. So failure to pay penalty, there's an explanation of what that is. 0.5% per month up to 25% of the unpaid balance. And then you can also request a removal or reduction of penalties. So a couple of ways that you can do that. If you've requested tax advice from the IRS in writing based on complete information that you've given to the IRS and they've responded with a written response, and that was held against you in an audit, you can have penalties removed for that. You can have penalties removed due to what's considered reasonable cause, or the IRS also has wide discretion under a program known as first-time abatement. So in any of those cases, you may need to complete IRS Form 843, which is the request for refund and abatement claim form. We'll put links to that resources on that form as well in the show notes. So this is the section about the written advice from the IRS. The IRS can't really abate interest the way that it can abate penalties. However, because interest is prescribed by law. However, any penalties that are removed or any taxes that are reduced will compel the IRS to recalculate the interest. So if you get $5,000 worth of penalties removed, the IRS would recalculate the interest as if that $5,000 penalty never existed. So you won't be paying interest on penalties that you later get wiped off the slate. Some links to additional information. We'll circle back to this resource in a moment. I'm just going to scroll through real quick and see what other pages are available. This page is probably blank. This is going to be the page that you would return with your payment. You should make sure that you send your payment and this page to this address. payable again to the U.S. Treasury. What you would not want to do is default to the upper corner, upper left-hand corner up here. In this case, it is the same address, but I have seen many notices where the slip or the enclosure has a different address than this. So be careful. Generally, I advise people to default to whatever's in that slip. So let's take a look at what the IRS website says about this. And basically, it kind of gives you the same breakdown that the notice did. Read the notice carefully, pay your balance. If you have any questions or if you disagree, contact the IRS. In recent weeks, the IRS has been completely overwhelmed, and for the past, we're recording this in September of 2025. I'd say pretty much for most of the tax year, a lot of people that I've talked to, virtually a unanimous decision. No one has been able to get through to the IRS phone number on their written notice. So if that is the case, you should at least try to address this with your local office to move this forward. Don't simply throw up your hands because you can't get through to the phone number. The IRS will just keep they'll just keep a running tab of whatever taxes you owe and your penalties and your interest. So, if you can't get through to the number on the notice, then try the 800-829-1040 number, and then try to address this at your local IRS office. At some point, you should get to someone that can help you through this. However, it's not going to be easy. I just caution you that now based on the recent conversations I've had. There's a long list of frequently asked questions, such as, if you're a citizen living overseas, can you come back? Well, you can come back. You might not be able to leave again, but you can come back. If you have a U.S. passport, you may be able to use your passport, but you'll be notified in writing by the State Department if you have an application that's been denied or if your passport has been revoked. So this is just the notice that your tax situation has been reported to the State Department. And of course, if you do get this reversed, there is another notice, CP508R, I believe, that the IRS will send you to tell you that the slate's wiped clear. So keep copies of this notice, and then when you eventually get off the seriously delinquent list, make sure you keep copies of the subsequent tax notice. And we'll put links to that video as well, so you can see what you would look forward to once you resolve your tax debt. So that's about all we have for this video. Do take it seriously, but at this point, if you've received this notice, you've probably received quite a few notices, or you should have, in which case you should be taking prompt action to rectify the issue, whether it's trying to set up an installment agreement or some sort of offer in compromise, or if you're just making tax payments to the point that you can. The IRS does have some resources available to kind of help taxpayers out, but first and foremost, you do have to take the first steps to help yourself out. So as I mentioned, we'll put links to relevant resources we've created on some of the forms and topics mentioned here. So if you like our articles, you can check them out at Teach Me Personal Finance. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in the name of the tax form that you're looking for the article for, and odds are pretty high that we've written that article. So you can check it out there. You can check out our YouTube videos. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.